To me, AI's implications on the environment are mixed, whereas on society, they're pretty clear.
From Agerpoint, I'm James Kotecki, and this is Intelligent Everywhere. My guest today is Akshat Rathi, senior reporter for Bloomberg News and author of the book Climate Capitalism and host of the climate podcast Zero. Akshat, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's nice to be here.
Okay, so you say that the impacts of AI on society are worse than impacts for the environment. But we hear so much concern about the impacts that AI is having on the environment, all the power that's being used for these data centers, all the water that's being used, et cetera. So tell me more about what you mean by that.
Well, we have to put it in perspective. The electricity consumption has to be put in context. So if you take electricity consumption going out to 2030, the amount of total electricity consumed in growth in that period is going to be way higher, maybe 3 or 4 times higher for air conditioning than it's going to be for AI data centers globally. Then there are the environmental implications of that energy. Because these AI companies will take on any form of electricity that they can get their hands on, it will mean there will be more CO2 emissions. But it is also true that they are also going for the sources of electricity they can build the fastest, which tend to be renewables, and they also tend to be cheaper. So you get this race for trying to build electricity supply that may have negative environmental implications, but it also can speed up renewables.
Is it hard to do the math on the environmental implications, really? Because you've got all these different competing forces. You've got the energy that these data centers are using. Is it also possible that by going for greener power, let's say, AI companies effectively dump more money into solar, which effectively puts more money into solar research, so we get more efficient solar panels, maybe faster than we otherwise would, and then the algorithms become more efficient, so they use less power, but now we have leftover solar power? Like, there's all these ways to kind of speculate about how this thing might go, right? Are there any credible, trusted sources that have kind of done the complete math on this?
No, they haven't. There haven't been trusted sources. And the reason partly for that is most of these efforts are private companies and they don't want to share information. So if you take the big tech companies, very few of them, if any, spell out how much AI specifically is consuming in electricity. You can tell it is consuming more and more electricity because you can see them as companies rapidly grow their electricity use, but they do not split out the use cases. In some cases, there are declarations on how much water use is being made in certain data centers, and there is clearly problems like things in Arizona where there's already a water shortage and you build a data center that is consuming a lot of water. That's a problem. But it's also one that has some amount of self-correction. So if you go to places where there is such a water shortage, water will become more expensive, data centers will become uneconomical. If you go to places where there is cheap, clean electricity, then those data centers will run at lower cost than the data centers that are running on expensive coal or natural gas. So you will get some amount of self-correction there. And there is, as you noted, some amount of AI also helping make AI more efficient, which at least Google says that they've been able to do by rerouting the queries that come to places which are greener, that have cheaper electricity, and thus spread out the impact of energy on AI use.
There are a lot of people thinking about how to use this technology to better the planet. How much do you weigh that on the scale as far as, something on the positive side of the ledger that maybe would make people a little bit less concerned about the environmental impacts than they otherwise would be?
That side of the ledger is also complicated because in one form, AI and its sort of predecessors, machine learning, have been contributing to speeding up the process of science, of process of discovery, process of invention for more than a decade, even before these large language model companies started to create a hype around artificial intelligence. Then there are use cases that have used LLMs to try and speed up the process of discovery of invention. One of them is to try and find new materials for, say, carbon capture or for batteries or for refrigeration. And there are companies that claim that they've done so, but none of them yet have produced a product that is better than what's being produced by a traditional process. And so the proof is yet to be seen. There are also some use cases that have shown results. So one that I'm aware of is being able to use AI for longer term forecasting of the weather. So right now, current models, as you can go and see on your weather app, will tell you weather out up to 2 weeks at a time. But what about 2 months out, a year out, 5 years out? Not the climate, but the weather. That specific day, what do you think things would look like? And there have been companies like Climate AI that have used AI models to try and improve longer term forecasting, which then companies have been able to use to make decisions to try and, say, put a berry farm in California rather than in Mexico. It is still a very limited set of companies that have used AI for climate good. There is potential, but it is yet to be proven.
I want to put one other idea out on the table, and I'm not sure how many people really subscribe to this if they think it through explicitly, but maybe there's this kind of implicit sense that, okay, once we have super intelligence, we're just going to be able to query to the super intelligence, how do we solve the climate crisis? And it's just going to spit out the answer, and that's going to be the salvation for humanity, which of course seems like kind of a silly idea when you say it out loud, because you could type, how do you solve the climate crisis into ChatGPT right now? And it would give you some answers like maybe have a carbon tax or a cap and trade system, which are for, maybe not scientific reasons, but for political reasons, kind of non-starters, at least in the United States. Do you think people have this idea that, maybe it's a mixed bag on the power usage right now, maybe it's a mixed bag on whether it's contributing to science right now, but we just got to go full speed ahead to super intelligence and something that will magically solve things?
I don't think it's a silly idea. I think it's a dangerous idea, because to assume it will do something is to not work on the problem now, hoping that sometime in the future somebody else will work on the problem. And we have seen that kind of dangerous, I would say magical thinking actually cause real world harm. An example from the climate sphere is the work of William Nordhaus, who won a Nobel Prize in economics to try and put a price on climate impacts, and thus a price on climate action. And in his view, the richer we get, the easier it will be to solve a problem like climate change. And so really, it is not something that we should worry about now, because a 3 degrees Celsius warming world would be optimal, because by that time we'll be so rich that we'll be able to afford all the climate solutions we want to afford. The implication that it's going to be the future, we'll be richer, we'll solve the problem, that was wrong. And that is something that economists have been trying to correct ever since.
What do you think is missing from the conversation around AI and its impact on the environment? What do you think would need to be different to advance that conversation?
I think optimism, pessimism are two lenses you can view the world through. What you need is more realism. You need to be real about the actual impacts of AI and the actual potential of AI in providing those solutions, and that none of that is going to happen automatically. A lot of us are now consumers of AI in some form or the other. Previously it was algorithms on social media or on your Netflix feed or your Amazon purchase. Today it is your conversation with ChatGPT, your analysis for your client that's now being done by AI rather than a junior consultant. There are real world use cases we are involved in. So it is on us, it is our duty to also then think about the negative impacts that they bring to environment or to society.
Akshat Rathi, Bloomberg News, thank you so much for your realism and your perspective today on Intelligent Everywhere. Really appreciate you being on the show.
It was great to be on the show. Thanks.
And thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and tell us what you're working on in the comments. Let those algorithms know you want more Intelligent Everywhere, and that'll make me happy too. From Agerpoint, I'm James Kotecki, and this is Intelligent Everywhere.